Up, and what you are going to see here are pictures of the Boston Celtics deboarding their celebratory plane in Miami with the Larry O'Brien Trophy. To the victors go the spoils. The celebration parade in Boston is not until Friday, so they're down in South Beach soaking up the sun and some of the nightlife after winning the championship. And so I want to do this green list today. So the green list is my top 5, this, that, or the other. I do it here and on my radio show regularly. So yesterday, Cam Pratt, who's one of the producers on our radio show, just put together 5 statistics that would make an argument that the Boston Celtics of this past season are one of the most dominant teams in any season in NBA history. And I just wanted to read them to you verbatim because they astonished me. Here we go. At number 5, including the playoffs, this year, the Celtics held a 20-point lead in 50 of their 101 games. In the last 25 years, only one other team ever did that. It was the cheat code 2017 Warriors, the team that had Kevin Durant and was just unfairly good. They had a 20-point lead in half of the games they played this season. At number 4, the Celtics had 15 more wins than any other team in the league this year, including the regular season and the playoffs. They are the 6th team ever to record at least 15 more wins than anyone else in a season in NBA history, including regular season and playoffs. The 5 teams that are ahead of them are legitimate NBA royalty. Those are numbers that suggest they were head and shoulders above the league in a way that few teams ever have been. At number 3, the Celtics are the 14th team ever to win at least 80 games in a season in NBA history, and of those, their .792 win percentage is the second best in a season in Celtics history. Only the '86 Celtics ever had a better winning percentage, and that team is considered by many to be the greatest team in NBA history. At number 2, including the playoffs, the Celtics outscored their opponents all year long by an average of 10.7 points a game. That is the 5th best differential in a season in NBA history. We are talking about 4 teams in the 70-plus year history of the NBA that had better plus-minus numbers than the Celtics had this year. And that includes dominating their matchups against the Western Conference. But finally, here's my favorite one. The Celtics had the most 50-point wins, the most 40-point wins, the most 30-point wins, and the most 25-point wins in NBA history. No team ever won as many games as the Celtics did this year by 50, by 40, by 30, or by 25. They dominated the league this season in a manner that very few teams in the entire history of the sport ever had. So what does that make this year? What does that make them? Let me get the guys in here. Zach Lowe is the person I would call up on my radio show to have this conversation with, because it feels to me like there are 2 conversations that can be had here. One is, how do they stack up with some of the other greatest teams of all time? And that turns into, well, if they played them, who would win? Those are nebulous, irrelevant. Those are conversations that will, on some level, go nowhere because those games will never happen. All you really can do is judge how a team competed against the competition it had. This isn't college football. They didn't make their own schedule. This team is one of the greatest teams of all time, and I don't feel like people are saying it.
Statistically, they check every box. Wins, playoff wins, 16-3, scoring margin, regular season and playoffs. Statistically, they are as good as any single season team almost ever. The only knock against them is it's not their fault, but their playoff opponents, just every one of them in the East got injured, and Embiid and Giannis just didn't get there to test them. And look, I don't think personally, I did a deep dive on this in ESPN.com yesterday, I can't put them in the tippy top tier with the 86 Celtics and 87 Lakers and the best Jordan teams, but they go toe-to-toe with any team the next tier down. And maybe this is unfair, Greeny, but I think next season could play into this too, because they are set up for a run. And I will say this, remember Pat Riley guaranteed a repeat in 1988? I want someone with the Celtics to go there. State it as your goal. Don't steer away from it. Don't say, oh, we're just a couple championships in the next 5 years. If you break the no repeat streak, the history will totally shine on you and your standing will be beyond dispute. I want them to chase that goal, to own it, to lead into it.
That's an interesting one. UD, the fact that the East was considered, Hembo, shout out to me. What was their record against the West this year, the Celtics' record against the West? They dominated.
Very good.
They dominated the West. For people who say, oh, the East was so weak this year, they dominated their matchups against the West. Their record against the West was even better, 27-8 against the Western Conference this year. They can't control the fact that Halliburton got hurt, that Julius Randle got hurt, that Embiid was hurt, that Giannis was hurt, all that kind of stuff. How should we put into perspective the dominant season the Celtics just had?
They were the best team in the NBA this year, hands down. And the numbers speak for themselves. We can't take away nothing the Celtics did this year. But I'm a little old school. I'm a little old school in the sense where that 86 team, I'm looking at those teams. I'm looking at, those Lakers teams where they went 3 in a row with Shaq and Kobe and those guys. I'm looking at those MJ eras, and I'm comparing them to those guys. That Boston team alone with Bird and DJ and McHale and Walton coming
Robert Parrish. Walton was the sixth man. Yep.
6 men of the year. I mean, those were unbelievable teams to watch. So, yes, they're in the conversation, but I don't know if we put them over those teams because those teams were on that dynasty level. They did it again. And when you talk about doing it again, one conversation that I was able to have with Joe Mazzulla after that game, where when he pointed to where that banner was going to be put in Boston. After that, he pointed to another space that was open. There another banner can go. So he's already starting the process and the mindset of, we want to do it again next year. This was this year, and it's great. We're going to celebrate it. But he's already putting in those guys' mind, there's another space for another banner here.
Well, I mentioned the repeat because Denver won last year, and they have the best player in the world. And their public comments, they kind of backed away from the repeat concept. They're like, we're thinking long lens, next 6-7 years of Jokic's prime, let's grab a few championships. I want Boston to go the other way because this is 5 years in a row and now 6 pending without a repeat champion since the KD Warriors, who are also in this conversation, tier 1 title team.
Right.
The Celtics, you break that streak, then your standing is beyond reproach, beyond question. I think they should lean into that state, put up that, point to that hole in with that space for banner 19.
All that is great. Just don't come back to Miami to celebrate. just fly somewhere else next year.
Does that bother you?
Of course it does. That's why you have me in studio here now. Now I'm understanding.
Okay.